ready for another lesson?
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Back Row Banter, your favorite casual movie talk podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Adam Schwartz, and on this week's episode, we'll be talking about Late Night with the Devil. But of course, before we get to any of that, I am joined today by Talk Show Tyler Berdalis.
What's going on? We're kind of on a talk show, but
We are a little bit.
yeah, no really interviews.
Right. We can do an interview. Do you want to be interviewed?
I'm good.
Okay.
I've been interviewed plenty of times.
Okay. How does it feel to be first to be called out here? No Nathaniel this week.
It's great. Yeah, fuck that guy.
Facts. Yeah, I think I've mentioned this before. Actually, I mentioned it on an episode you weren't on, Ty. But I listened to a podcast, and their rule is anytime anyone's not in the office, you have every right to talk shit about them because it's their fault for not being there. So, Nathaniel, I'm sorry.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, don't go
Yeah,
find
we're
that
actually
episode.
going to permanently kick him off this, by the way. He's actually not returning.
He's not coming back. Yeah, but don't go and find that episode that you missed, Ty. It's
Oh, I already listened to it.
all right, cool.
I'm well aware of what happened.
Fair enough. Also joining us this week, who is present on the pod, it's big backstage BlakeHolder.
Hey, what up?
What's going on backstage?
Not much, man. Good to be back. Missed the ep last week.
You both missed the ep last week. It was interesting. Me and Nathaniel, mano y mano. That was more of an interview for sure. But
you held it down though.
Yeah,
you held it down. Did justice.
Did you guys listen to it?
I did, and I was actually able to catch the movie.
Bet.
Yeah, good film.
Well, now you caught the movie, Ty. I don't know if you did.
I did not.
Blake, do you have a ranking of where you want to put it? I forgot where I said I put it.
Yeah, I don't have that off the top of my head. Okay. You'd have to spin back to me.
All right, for sure.
I can touch that at the end of the episode.
But did you like it? Do you want to give a little review of Love Lies Bleeding?
Yeah. Overall, I liked it. Big fan of Rose Glass. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to see Saint Maud, and I want to say, what is it, 2021, late 2020.
I think that was 2019 is what we decided.
Wow. Yeah. I know it was one of those films that was kind of released film festival, international, then America, then streaming.
Right.
But yeah, big fan of hers since then. So I was kind of waiting to see what she did next. And yeah, overall, I mean, it's I don't like it as much as Saint Maud. One, it's not a horror thriller type of thing. It's more so of a drama, but pretty good pacing. I like the runtime. Two leads are well, and Rose Glass, I mean, she's doing her thing as one of the better or more notable as well female directors that's now getting the recognition she deserves.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll keep it brief. Yeah, then I'll pull up a ranking once we get to this one. I'll give a quick snip on that ranking too. But yeah, overall, I like it. I'd recommend. Good film. You can get in and out in under 2 hours, and you're watching good cinema. Go give it a shot. Yeah. We need more original adaptations like that.
For sure. Dope. Well, hope you guys had a good week. I've been are you guys into Battlefield at all, or ever into Battlefield?
Ooh. Star Wars?
Not Battlefront, Battlefield, the franchise.
Oh yeah, got it.
Yeah.
No, Justin was.
He strikes me as a Battlefield type.
Yeah. I played the first two on like 360 days.
So Battlefield Battlefield Bad Company 2?
Yes.
And then Battlefield 3?
Yes. So played the first two on
those are the first two I started 360.
With. So those are pretty cool. Battlefield Bad Company was awesome for its time.
It was. Oh, for its time, way ahead of its time. Way ahead of its time.
Sure.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
But yeah, ultimately haven't really went back. I think I played Battlefield 1 for like maybe a week or two when it first came out. It was one of those big IP releases.
Yeah.
But that's ultimately it. Are you
well, that's what I was going to say is they had Battlefield 2042 came out same year. It was the same year as Halo. So it was 2021, late 2021, I think.
Okay.
Same year as Halo and COD Vanguard was the big three releasing at one time. And it was like completely broken. But recently my friends and I got back into it. It's perfectly fine now. Everything runs great. No, not a lot of bugs, not really running into any issues. It's so much fun just to be back in a good Battlefield game, because like you Blake, Battlefield Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, and then Battlefield 4. I loved all of those games on 360, and then Battlefield 4 on my Xbox One. But Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5 just were not really my thing. They were fun, but like I just couldn't get all the way into them. But this game, being it back to like more Modern Warfare, it's still a little futuristic, but the guns feel like it's just more Modern Warfare. There's not a lot of a super ton of like futuristic stuff in it. But it's been a lot of fun, and like sniping in that game might be some of the best gameplay there is in just any kind of FPS, dude. Sniping in Battlefield, there's something about it, just with the bullet drop and having to lead your shots and everything. That's always been a main attraction for me. And I don't know if you guys are big snipers in games, but I love it. So this has been a fun couple weeks playing Battlefield. I wasn't sure if any of you guys, are you guys been gaming at all recently?
Tad bit. So I told you I went in. I wanted to finish Miles Morales, so I went in and finished that last week.
I put on Across the Spider-Verse for a little bit last night. Didn't watch the whole thing, nice. But I was just like, I want something on the background. I put on Netflix, and I was like, it was right there, and I was just like, we'll just put this on.
Yeah, for sure. So I was able I started that after we watched Across the Spider-Verse. And played it for maybe 2 weeks and kind of just fell off it. And then I picked it up again maybe a month ago and I was like, I'm going to finish this. So I'm going to finish it like a week into that, or last week, pardon me. So that was cool. Now I think I'm going to have to go ahead and purchase Spider-Man 2 and deep dive into that.
Yeah.
But after finishing Miles Morales, which is one awesome story, the graphics are really good, and just swinging around as Spider-Man is just one of the underrated things in current video games.
No,
you can turn the game on and do that
You're
literally
so
for
right.
30
it's
minutes.
So
and
much
it's so
fun.
For
and
sure.
Especially in the I only played the PS4 Spider-Man, so I haven't played Miles Morales or the second one. But just even in that one, like these new mechanics are so good.
It's so fun, bro.
It's like I've never played a game where just like getting from point A to point B is half of the fun of the game. Like just swinging around.
You've never fast traveled,
right?
Like you'd be insane to fast travel in Spider-Man games.
Yeah, there's just like that's not fun at all. It's like, yeah, exactly. You are cheating yourself of like half the fun of the game. And it's wild to say that half the fun of the game is swinging around, just not doing really anything. But it's like it is just so satisfying in the way. I don't know how you. It's always something I've thought about. Where like, how do you portray momentum and like that feeling of like the I don't know. You all felt if you've been on a roller coaster, but like that dip in your stomach as you get to the bottom of like a swing or like that kind of thing. Like, how do you kind of recreate that in video games? And I don't know how they do it, but they do it so well in these Spider-Man games. Yeah. There's just something about it. And I really want to play it on the PS5, the second one in Miles Morales, because they have that feedback in the controller. And with the advanced haptic feedback, I really want to try that out. But I have yet to get a PS5. I've been thinking about it recently in my mind. I'm trying to justify it. Where like I've been having the issues with my Xbox being a DVD player. I'm like, maybe I just need to buy a separate DVD player, 4K player. It'll be nice on my Xbox. That way I don't have to worry about it. And I'm like, well, that's already $300.
Right.
200 more. I might as well just get a PS5. And it's the same thing as the Sony. As the Sony DVD player I'm looking at. So I don't know. Maybe I should just pull the trigger.
Well, I'd recommend you two to do that. Like I said, just finish Miles Morales and awesome. So effectively, the last two of the last three open world games I finished in the past, so that's like 5 years, 6 years, are two Spider-Man games.
Yeah.
So then I finished the original God of War 4, God of War 2018, I guess the correct term, when that came out as well. So that's the third one of that trilogy. However, finished Miles Morales, and then I jumped back into God of War Ragnarok. So now that's on my slate to go through and finish that. Then after that, I'm into Spider-Man 2. So I told you I'm gonna try to get back on the solo video game grind. You know what I mean? Every other day or so, hopping on, putting 2 hours in instead of playing a PvP or like Siege or MK. It's like, let me just put 2 hours into a fucking story.
It's so much more chill too, and I like how you can just kind of quit at any time. Like once I'm done with the mission, or like even if I'm in the middle of one, like if it's just late or I'm tired, if I'm just bored, like there's no pressure to get off or stay on.
Right.
You know, it's like,
the rage doesn't really exist. Like you may get frustrated sometimes, but like
unless you're playing like a Dark Souls kind of game.
PvP. Yeah. Facts.
Yeah.
PvP frustration is diabolical.
It's just because there's someone else getting enjoyment out of your poor performance. It's the most rage-inducing thing ever when like something or so like you lag or like I don't know something random happens in the game that like just prevents you from getting a kill or something like that. It is
for sure.
It's the fact that someone else just got enjoyment out of my downfall. I can't have it. I can't have it.
Yeah, dead ass, bro.
Yeah. Ty, I know you're consistently gaming. What have you been playing recently?
Still on like a little bit of a COD grind, but it's just getting stale again. And I literally just like got into it with Bill and Joe, and I'm like, you guys need to chill the fuck out. Play another game.
I was gonna say, have they only been playing COD for the past 3.5 years?
It's been longer than that, but yeah.
Okay. And my question was going to be, is that the new COD? I don't even know which one we're on right now, but I know they come out every October, November, December, whatever. Is that the one you're currently playing?
MW22.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you guys playing Warzone? Are you playing multiplayer?
Resurgence. So basically Warzone, but small Warzone.
Right.
They
need to expand their horizons, man.
Well, I mean, it's not even that. I'm just saying for like the sake of Warzone, like they can't really play big map. The speed isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So with Resurgence, it's nice because then we don't really have to worry about like finding money, rezzing somebody, and stuff like that. And so, but other than that, like I was just kind of telling you, my buddy Brett hit up a couple of us in a group chat, and some of the guys have a Madden league that I do not partake in because I'm just not a huge sports guy as far as video games go. And then he was like, "So what about like a golf thing? Like we just get online, we all golf together." And I was like, "Ooh, you might have me, dude." Because I remember when he lived here, we used to go over to his place and we would play Tiger Woods for hours.
Yeah.
There'd just be like four of us, and we would just like throw the controller across the living room and just like everybody take their turn hitting, like just chilling. And so I'm like, I might be down. And so he was very nice. He found he looked at a couple different pricings because he didn't want people to go out and like spend like $70 just to maybe like play it twice and call it a day. But yeah, we ended up getting 2K23, and it was like $100 bundle, but it was on sale for $25. So I'm like, well, I'm sold already. Like you don't even have to ask at that point. So I'm like, I'm good. So we ended up getting it, and I've actually been playing it quite a bit. It's kind of like what you were saying with stories, Blake. It's just it's non-competitive really. You still just get to kind of do your own thing, and there's no like time limit. There's no like elevated heart rates. You're just kind of like hanging out, talking, and playing golf. So I'm like, it's cool as fuck. So.
Those games are fun too. When like nothing's super competitive, you guys can just hang out and chill.
Yeah, it's a good time so far. Yeah. So I'm excited. But that's really all I've been playing.
It's nice talking gaming without Nathaniel to cut us off so rudely, just because he can. he can only commentate on like what streamers he's watching that day. He is bizarre. He's like a phenomenon to me. I've never met someone who doesn't play video games but watches so much Twitch. He like almost exclusively watches video games and watches Waz play, but like has no interest in playing himself. I've never.
Well, that's like he loved playing when we were living together. It's like all we did. Like he just he followed suit. Yeah. But more power to him. Do whatever you want to do. No, for sure.
It's just like it's crazy. It's so funny, and I've said this to him before. It's just really funny to me. He has just like not a lot of interest in playing it himself, but like we'll watch people play for hours,
pass time and watch it.
Yeah. Which
I mean, that's what my YouTube algorithm looks like. Is like, as soon as I turn on my YouTube, it's just like the probably 4 or 5 different creators I follow that just like play MK.
Mm-hmm.
Then a few people who play Siege. Then just like other horror video games of live streaming Resident Evil remake, and then I was watch it for hours on end.
I thought of you recently, Blake, because like I'm a big podcast guy. Rarely do I ever like put him on my TV, but I did put on the Mind the Game podcast with JJ and
is that the JJ Redick and LeBron?
The JJ and LeBron
that's
podcast.
A phenomenal.
I only listened to the first episode, but I was already kind of floored by it, and I know the second episode's out, so I'll listen to that soon. But I kind of want to watch it now because like I know I had a good time watching on the first one. But yeah, it was a really good first episode. I'm excited for more of them. JJ Redick's he's great. I like his other podcasts. He's a really smart guy. He's really well spoken. He obviously knows what he's talking about. He's incredibly passionate. He's definitely one of my favorite, just like in terms of like just sports media people, like people who just talk about sports. Like he is probably up there as my favorite person, like just to listen to and have talk about basketball. I wish he was into like every sport or more sports as much as he was about basketball, because I'd love to hear his takes on other stuff. But yeah, he's great. Really like JJ.
Yeah, for sure. He's up there for my basketball content. And that podcast is awesome. That's one I caught like the other week whenever it first came out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, JJ and LeBron got a podcast.
Yeah.
Then LeBron's got a crazy basketball IQ too. So they're just
of course. Yeah, 21 years in the league.
Sports hot
He's
take,
probably got
like BS.
Right.
They're talking like real basketball. So it's a very, very intriguing for me. And like as a casual watcher, like I'm learning a ton of shit too.
And for me, as someone
JJ Redick is up there for sure.
Yeah, and for me, it's a nice podcast too, because like I feel like I'm learning a ton as someone like who's trying to get more into basketball and has. But my basketball knowledge, I mean, I never played past middle school, so like I didn't even get to high school level concepts. Like I stopped in middle school, so for me to like go into like the highest level of NBA basketball concepts and theory and whatever, it's a huge jump. But it's like I am learning more and like am able to like pick out more stuff now as I'm watching the game.
Yeah.
Definitely adds a layer to it.
That podcast is gonna blow up.
Yeah,
for sure.
It kind of already has, but I think it'll just continue to.
I hope it doesn't. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know enough about basketball. I don't care.
Speaking of podcasts, real quick. So yeah, JJ Redick is like my go-to like basketball mind for like analytical basketball, not like BS garbage hot takes. And then my person for football is Ryan Clark, who played in the NFL for a while. He played safety for the Steelers. He does some ESPN stuff as well on the side. How JJ does as well for the NBA, but then he has his own podcast, his own platform. And for Tyler's point, they just had Jordan Love on there. Nice. And that was a really good episode. So so they were on there talked about his upbringing, ball, playing through college, all type of shit. And Ryan Clark's a very articulate person, very intelligent, knows the X and O's of football. So yeah, that's something that you may be interested in, right? They just had Jordan Love. I wasn't a Jordan Love hater by any means, but then I watched it and I was like, hey, he may have just got a fan. You know what I mean? Not that he had to do much for anti-Jordan Love, but good episode.
Good.
For sure.
I'm glad. Yeah, I've watched a few things on him as far as like after game interviews and press conferences and stuff like that. And so he's definitely a likable dude, and
for sure.
I think he's in a really good spot, like media wise. Not that like Aaron Rodgers ever was, but you know, he obviously had some hot takes towards the back half of him being on Green Bay and kind of in that transitional period. But I think he's just like such a young like mind that he's still like so innocent and not jaded around like maybe the inner workings of the NFL or even like obviously the outside world. But yeah, he's a cool dude, and I like him, and I think we're gonna have a good team, and I think he's gonna be a really good leader as kind of years go on here.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, speaking of talk shows, let's get into the review of the movie about talk shows. I would kick it over to Nathaniel, but he's not here, so I'll go ahead and just give you a rundown of our reviews segment here at Back Row Banter. Of course, we're going to start out with the non-spoiler summary. I'll go over the IMDb page for the movie, give you some details, some cast lists, all that good stuff there. We'll give you some first reactions and our binary recommendations. That's a yes or no, because, of course, there is no nuance on the internet. And then from there, we'll go into spoilers. We'll give you a heads up on when that spoiler mark is. So if you have not seen the movie, you can jump over and skip that part. So you have more incentive to go see the movie and it's not spoiled for you. That timestamp will be left in the episode description. And then once the spoilers are over, we'll bring you guys back if you skipped over them, and then we'll rank the movie up upon our Entropy list, which is our big list of movies that are all ranked and compared to one another. So without further ado, let's get into Late Night with the Devil. This is a new movie, of course, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour and 33 minutes and an IMDb rating of 7.5 out of 10. Directed, pretty high, right? Higher than I would expect.
Yeah, for sure.
For a movie kind of this size and budget or what have you. Let me pull up the all cast list. Directed and written by Cameron Cairnes, and Colin Cairnes. I'm assuming they're brothers, but I can't confirm that right now.
Yeah, to my knowledge, they are.
Are you familiar with them at all? Have they had other stuff? Let me pull up their IMDb.
No, I don't know them from a can of paint, man. So this is my introduction to both of them doing work.
From looking at their IMDb's, they've only done TV before. This is their first feature-length film.
It was barely feature length.
Exactly. I know. I hesitated before saying that. 133 is not the longest movie, but hey, it's a good runtime for horror. I mean, that's kind of our sweet spot, as you said before. So we'll call it feature length. The cast includes David Dastmalchian, friend of the pod, Chicago native, I can't say he's Chicago native. I don't know if he's for sure. Is he for sure from Chicago?
Yeah, to my understanding, and that's been one of the appeal of like once I found him as an actor, then I started to like him even more. I was like, oh, he's a Chicago guy.
So he, on his IMDb page, it says he was born in Pennsylvania. I don't know if that was where he was raised, but at some point in his career, he was doing theater in Chicago, is what I heard. So he spent some time in Chicago. So I'll give him the nod there. But yeah, huge friend of the pod. He might be. Dude, with this one, he might be. I know we talk about it all the time, and I'll have to look at the interviews later. But
He's up there.
He's up there because he's just in so many of these movies now. With Dune, I want to count him because he's getting up there as one of the highest featured actors on the pod. But anyway, David Dastmalchian is Jack Delroy. We got Laura Gordon, Ian Bliss, Faisal Bazi, and Ingrid Torelli. I think. Oh, and we'll go Reese Ateri and Josh Kwong Tart. Those, I think, is where I'll leave it off. Not a huge cast here, but for the most part, those are the main characters we have here. Pretty small set of characters. For the most part, you're not jumping around too much, and all pretty well acted for the most part. From my experience with it is. Let's see here. The IMDb summary reads as follows. A live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. Good summary. Yeah. Don't want to say too much more. It's to give you more context here. It's loosely a live. I guess you could consider it found footage. Is kind of the premise of it. And that it's a found taping of both the broadcast of a late night episode from the 70s, as well as like behind the scenes footage is kind of like also what they go with. It seems like there's a behind the scenes camera documenting it. So somewhat of a found footage. It doesn't fit found footage in like the typical sense where it's like the shaky handheld kind of camera.
Right.
But it definitely kind of gives off the same effect of like these people don't seem. It's a very kind of like linear almost story, or at least tight knit story, where there's not a lot of things happening outside of like just the footage that we're able to kind of see. So it definitely feels like one, even though it's not you're kind of run of the mill found footage film. As our found footage hater / expert, Blake, how did you feel about this kind of setup for found footage horror?
Yeah, not a huge fan of found footage, but I mean, I think this one works well because at the end of the day, it is kind of a concept, at least to me, in the found footage genre, right? Where you're going back and basically watching it through as if it's the footage of watching like live television in the 70s. So, I mean, I think that was really interesting. As far as the aesthetic, I feel like they've nailed what I would believe to be the 70s aesthetic through the piecings while they're on there, and set pieces was really innovative, really cool. That grainy filter over it just kind of makes everything feel a little more realistic. Yeah. I think the overall performances were awesome. Dave Dastmalchian is awesome, man. I hope this is the role that like gets him to be, if he's not already an A-list actor, I'm sure he's somewhere on the line teeting that. You know what I mean? But I hope this is the one that like gets him overboard, where we can see him get his own like blockbuster film.
That was like the number one point I wanted to talk about with this movie. It was like this is definitely my first experience. I don't know, I haven't looked at his full discography. This is definitely my first experience with David Dastmalchian in a lead role, and he is certainly the one carrying this movie, or at least on paper, like he's the one they want carrying this movie, and he passes with flying colors, dude. Like this is definitely, I think, the one where like people are gonna recognize him if you see this movie, or like even if you pull it up, you might not know his name because he's not, like you said, he's not really to the A-list kind of actor yet. If you've seen enough Nolan movies, if you've seen enough Denny movies, like you'll recognize him, and if you're like us, you'll know his name. But like even my dad, I said, "Oh, it's David Dastmalchian," and then he had to go and look it up. He goes, "Oh yeah, that guy was just in Dune," and I'm like, "Yeah, like he's in all these other movies." He's like Dark Knight, and I'm like, "Yeah, like duh, yeah."
He's the infamous. Oh, he's that guy.
Right.
It's the face. His face is like so unrecognizable or so recognizable. You can't reference that to somebody else. Where once you see a photo of him, you'll be like, "Oh, I definitely know."
Of course, yeah, you'll definitely recognize him. Yeah, he's got a very recognizable face and image. But yes, this is my first time seeing him in a lead role, and I agree with you. I really hope this is the one that kind of sends him over the edge, where it's like, oh, he can do more than just be a side character that's got a few lines or a few minutes of screen time. Like you can give him a significant role as like a main actor or a side character, and he'll carry his weight, And so that was probably my biggest takeaway of this film, and was my biggest kind of thing I wanted to see out of this movie, was how he did in carrying a movie, because I think you'll see it from time to time. There was one movie I'm trying to think of.
He's in a lot. I mean, he was just in Blade Runner.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to.
He's in Oppenheimer.
I'm more trying to think of like a movie where you have an actor like this who can't really carry it, who's kind of relegated to. There was an example I thought of not too long ago, when kind of thinking of this comparison that I wanted to make, but I can't remember it can't remember it now. But you can see it happen where like an actor like this, who's got some buzz about him, or has had these kind of roles, and then he gets the chance to carry the movie, and you kind of just find out they're not the actor that's going to be able to carry a feature length film and be the main attraction. And this is kind of like his chance to prove that he could, and I think he absolutely did.
Yeah. Ty?
I would agree 100%. Yeah, I think he does a phenomenal job. I think this is one of those times where we all kind of walked in and we were kind of like, man, I hope he can carry this. I have really good high hopes for him. I think that he can carry this, and I'm glad he was smart about it too. Pick a genre that you're obviously comfortable with. And then also a runtime that's not gonna like drain you to feel like you have to give like the most masterful delivery form that you've ever been in. You can still kind of have fun with this and play around with it, and still kind of stay in your lane and build a super healthy spotlight for yourself in this film. And I think he does a phenomenal job, figuratively and literally, when he's in the spotlight for the actual movie portion of it. But yeah, man, I loved him in this. I thought he did a phenomenal job. I think everybody was doing a pretty good job, but he obviously carried a weight of it. I'd say he probably carried like 80%, and I think he did a phenomenal job. I think it was shot well. Like what you guys said, nailed the 70s vibe, for sure. I love the setup that they kind of go into, that we'll get into. But yeah, I think it was done really well for what they were given and what they were trying to accomplish. And yeah, it's definitely a good little flick.
Yeah, and to double down on that, I do want to give some credit as well. We keep saying Dave Dastmalchian pretty much carried this, but the role of the young possessed girl, I believe it is Ingrid Torelli.
Yes,
I believe her name. She's awesome as well for this to be a child actor in this.
We're on the same page here, Blake. I also wanted to shout her out. That. Yeah, it's such a interesting role to kind of try and pull off. Like what kind of personality do you give someone who's somewhat possessed but also has kind of control of the possession? Because I think a lot of times it's played off as not something you can just summon, or it's like it's kind of just always there. And it's hard. It's an interesting character choice to be like, oh no, she's got control of it, but she's still kind of weird because she was raised in a cult, and then every once in a while she gets possessed. So like it lingers there, but she's also kind of like a sweet innocent girl. She played it so well. Where like you're kind of creeped out with her, but you also do kind of like sympathize with her, and you do kind of want to have that like feeling of that you would towards like a girl who's been through that kind of thing. Like she plays it off so well. It's well written, and also I want to tip the hat to Laura Gordon, who plays June, and of course David, who like kind of do a great job of playing with that character in terms of like being gentle with her in the way they talk to her and that kind of thing. Just all of that together really kind of plays up that character and like how you as an audience member feel about it, or feel about her.
Yeah. So it sounds like we're all around. Seems like everyone's pleased, right?
Yeah,
That's kind of what I'm taking away.
So. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really
and I actually I went and saw it with Nathaniel, and I obviously won't speak for him, but from what I gathered, he would also be a recommend.
Okay.
Good.
And so speaking of you seeing it with Nathaniel, I mean, obviously this is one that's in theaters. I think it comes on Shudder in the next few weeks as well. Shudder also, side note, Shudder, awesome horror platform. For any of the horror fans, that's what you need to be subscribed to. I think it's like $4 a month. But they've got everything on there. But in terms of seeing this in theaters release week, how was everybody showing? Did anybody have like a decent crowd, or did you go like a Sunday morning?
Nathaniel and I went on, was that when? No, it wasn't Wednesday. Tuesday afternoon at like 3:00. So it was us and maybe like 6 other people.
Gotcha. Okay. Adam?
Yeah, mine, I saw it with Papa Schwartz at like a 3 p.m. screening on a Sunday. And it was at one of the small theaters at Barrington, but the theater was sold out. So that's 20 to 30 seats around there.
Yeah.
So like theater was pretty full, small theater, but from what I was looking at other screenings and stuff, it seemed like it did pretty well. I think I'm looking here, it did about 2.8 domestically on its first opening weekend. I sent that headline to you guys. But on opening day, I think it was, or maybe the Saturday, it made $666,000.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is like hilarious, but also kind of creepy. But I'm trying to find the budget for this because it is a relatively small movie.
Yeah, I want to say they made that budget back release weekend, kind of from the stuff I was reading up on, which is awesome, man. It's kind of what we need, original horror piece. So while you're digging on that, I went to a Friday showing. I went to a Friday night showing. Big horror guy, right? So I had to go all in. So I went Friday night showing. It was a packed theater, smaller theater though to atmosphere. It wasn't like we were like in a huge IMAX thing or like that, but it was sold out. And yeah, pretty good crowd there. One thing that actually was pretty funny with this is there was a ton of producer studio credits at the beginning.
Yeah, there was like a minute and a half.
Yeah, and like as they just kept going on, like everyone just kind of like slowly got more disgruntled. And then finally somebody was like, Jesus Christ, like how much did everybody pay $50 for this shit? Like everyone just started laughing in the theater. So yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, there was I'm sure you all picked up on it too, where I'm like, oh my God, how many studios are in this?
No, this is, I feel like I'll see some of that in like foreign films, where like foreign films tend to take, need a little bit more production studios to get and production credits to get made. This was definitely for like a US made film was the most I've seen in front of one, which like, hey, more power to them, man. Like get the movie made however you need to get it made. I'm sitting there for an extra 60 seconds looking at these production studios isn't bothering me in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, it was just something I noticed where like you're not really used to seeing. You're used to seeing like 3, 4. A lot would be 5 or 6. This was like 10 to 15. It felt like of different studios and sponsors or whatever it is. So yeah, that was something that kind of stood out.
Yeah, and even at one point, dude, watching it, like, because as they continue to go on, like, you can hear people kind of like snickering and laughing.
Yeah.
But then at one point, I feel like I was being like trolled. Like, I don't know, because like I feel like one of them said like making sense, like it was like 2070 something, like 2075 or something like that, and I'm like, is this a joke?
Like, part of the movie?
I don't know. It was goofy, man. But yeah, that was just kind of the funny snip of seeing this one in theaters.
Yeah. I can't find a good estimate on its budget. I'm seeing anywhere from like 1 to 1.5. So, which sounds about right.
I saw 1.5.
Yeah, which sounds about right. But yeah, a good theater going experience for the most part. Finally, a theater where like, I feel like in the small ones sometimes you'll get the people that are talking, or honestly in any size theater. But for a horror movie, I think when I saw Exorcist, Believer, or whatever it was, there was like people talking the whole time in front of me.
Yeah, for sure.
And that just to the point where like I usually don't say anything if it's like a little bit, but it was like to the point where like I was just like, please just stop. Please.
Yeah.
Like I said something. But yeah, good viewing experience. I'm glad this movie did well, relatively to its budget and made money back.
Yeah.
Glad to support a smaller budget film. I do want to touch on, I guess we don't have to talk about this in spoilers. I'd love to talk about this non-spoilers so more people can hear about
Assume
it.
it's the AI
stuff.
situation.
Yeah, I wanted
to dig on that too.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So there was some hubbub on the internet over the weekend as this debuted about use of AI images in the movie. And so if you've seen the movie, there are a couple title cards kind of in between scenes a little bit as they kind of cut on and off of air. They give little like late night owl or night owls title cards.
Yeah, like we'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
Situation,
Exactly. If you Google it, you'll see what we're talking about. But those images, which are probably on the screen for a total of 30 seconds, maybe across the movie, were AI generated. And so there was some people saying, hey, boycott this movie for using AI to make it. Where do you guys coming down on that situation?
Ooh. Yeah, man. So that's one that I caught whiff of that. I want to say like the day of my showing, just kind of scrolling through Reddit and whatnot. But I didn't really deep dive into it. But yeah, I mean, afterwards, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I can see both sides, right? One, what they use it for was so minor scheme of things. To your point, it's on screen for 3 seconds, like total, probably.
Right.
But then on the other side, it's like, well, like that's taken away. Like that could have been somebody's job, right? Where you can pay somebody to create those art stills and you wouldn't even have to pay them a shit ton of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you can give somebody the platform to do that. They'll get credits and they'll get all those things right. And that can help somebody's career. So, I mean, I can see that it's a little finicky there, but I mean, it's not like this movie's budget was 1.5 million. It's not like this is what's going on like a major blockbuster.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I can see both sides. It is a little not. I think the people who are like, we should boycott the film and never watch it. I think that's maybe a little too far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I like I said, I see both sides, and they are taking away positions from somebody who could have very well made those type of title cards and probably done better, right? And they could have paid them for it, and they would have. Who knows the trajectory of that person's career? So,
yeah. Ty, any thoughts here?
Yeah, you know, it's obviously a hot button for people right now, especially after, you know, everything that just happened. I think you know, be a little smarter about it. You don't have to stir that pot like you easily could have. This could have been avoided to kind of stir the pot in that direction, especially after everything just happened. You know, I think that as soon as this argument dies down, maybe, you know, another 3 years from now when, you know, unfortunately technology is inevitable. And I think this will always kind of be that constant struggle. And, you know, I think it's one of those things that it's always going to kind of be around, and we're always going to kind of have to revamp how we do things to, you know, make sure that people are getting the jobs they're supposed to get, or, you know, not it's for me, it's also kind of one of those things too, where why would you do something like that? And because you're only going to push the creative people out. You know, they'll get tired of it, and then, you know, we won't have creative people anymore. People will just, you know, revert to just being dumb, and we'll get wallied, and, you know, next thing we'll know, we're all just in floaty chairs and just doing whatever's in front of our screens. And, you know, we're already kind of headed there, obviously.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just one of those things where we obviously could pay somebody to be creative, and there's obviously plenty of minds out there for stuff like that. And so, yeah, you don't have to stir the pot right now. You should have just kind of you know, done it the right way. But it's not my money, it's not my movie, and it's not really my argument. So, yeah. But yeah, that's the kind of the side of the fence that I'm on.
I hear you.
Yeah, I definitely am with you guys, where like I totally see both sides of it. Where on the one hand, you know, it's $1.5 million budget, not a relatively small budget. $1.5 million to pay the actors, the crew, equipment goes pretty quick. I can imagine. And so obviously you got to, you know, cut corners where you can. And I think the part that hurts me the most is like boycotting a movie like this can make or break whether more movies like this get made. So like saying you want to boycott it because they used some AI generated images, when like in all reality, like this isn't the kind of movie that you should be boycotting for that reason. If this was a Marvel movie, yeah, let's slow down, Disney. Let's reconsider that you have a $200 million budget and you're using AI, or like you're cutting, I don't know, whatever it is, cutting $50 million out of the budget to use AI, CGI, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like that's a situation where I'd be like, yeah, we should boycott this because it's not really going to affect the people that are behind the budgeting or those decisions. Or it'll affect them, but it won't be felt quite as much. Whereas like $1.5 million movie, man, cutting those kind of corners is somewhat necessary. And in my opinion, AI is going to help more movies like this get made because you can kind of cut those corners. And I think this is a situation on a type of movie and the type of budget for a movie where like this is where AI can help people and get these movies made. And $1.5 million might seem like a lot, but it really isn't at the end of the day when it comes to making a movie of this scale and this production quality. Because it looks great for $1.5 million. Like even it looks really good. That's a really, really small budget at the end of the day for how good this movie ends up looking with the costume design and all the props and all that stuff together.
Yeah.
The other side of it is how much would it really have cost to get an artist to create those slides? I really don't know pricing on anything like that. It could be as low as $200. It could be as high as $3,000 if you want them to look really nice. It could be higher than that even. I really don't know how that kind of pricing works.
Right.
But in as small as a budget as $1.5 million is, how much of that budget could have gone just to paying some graphic designer, for a month's rent or something like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely the other side of it. But I ultimately fall on like it's really not. This is the situation where like an AI can benefit these kind of movies. And while it does take money out of the graphic designer's budget, that money went somewhere. The money that didn't get paid to the graphic designer went to the lighting guy or went to some other person in the production. So it's a tough conversation where these are things that are going to keep happening and keep getting figured out as we go. But I do think this is a situation where AI is going to affect movies somehow, and like I think this is ultimately going to help more movies like this get made than it's going to prevent people from having jobs or that kind of thing. So yeah, it's tough, but I definitely think boycotting is really extreme. And I definitely think we've got to be careful going forward. Where like, where is that line where if a $1.5 million budget movie, if we're saying that's okay for them to use AI, what about a $10 million movie? What about a $20 million movie?
Yeah.
50, 100, like where do we draw that line exactly? That's just going to have to get figured out as we go. But definitely this time around, it's not a significant enough part of the movie. It wasn't going to pay anyone a significant amount of money where like, this is a huge problem. But it is something to keep an eye on and be aware of. Like we got to figure out where that line is pretty soon before things get out of hand. So
yeah,
definitely an interesting conversation that we're only going to see more and more of as time goes on.
Yeah, that's probably the hottest topic of this film, to be honest with you.
It is, yeah. Which is not really,
but nonetheless,
it's sad that this is the talk point of the movie because these images that get flashed on the screen for maybe 30 seconds in total are driving a movie that is really well made for the budget it had and for everything that it had going for it. It's really, really well made. So it's unfortunate this is the talking point of the movie, but hopefully more people will just kind of go see it. I was kind of nervous because looking at the screenings, like one of the screenings I looked at was completely empty. I was like, is this boycott really that serious? And then I looked at some other ones and they were pretty full. So I was like, all right, thank God people aren't that upset about it or anything like that. But did want to touch on that. Did want to get your guys' thoughts, and listeners, if you have any thoughts you wouldn't have heard, write in. Let us know. But I think with all that being said, are we to recommend all around, including Nathaniel? I think he said he's a recommend as well. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Cool. Well, I think we're gonna go ahead and head into spoilers. So if you've not seen the movie and don't want to spoil it for you, go ahead and check the episode description where I've left a timestamp you could jump to, where you'll be taken to the ranking of the movie up upon the Entropy list. I have the mixer. I don't know what button does what, so I'll press this one. Oh, I don't know if that made any noise. I think I muted the sound effects. Hang on. That's not it. Wait. Oh, that made noise, but I can't hear it. Okay, wait. That's applause. We got it. All right, I might have played applause like 3 times. but we are definitely in spoilers now.
Cool. But yeah, man, I mean, this thing kicks off, right? So I mean, you get the beginning kind of like 2-minute like monologue backstory of Dave's
dude, it felt like
character.
more than 2 minutes. That felt like a good 5 minutes almost of just backstory and dialogue. And I was like, I did want to touch on that, where it's just a very bold choice to start a movie like that. And like this movie does it really well. I'm not saying it doesn't. And that's like the point I want to get to is like this doing that kind of plot dump can go so poorly. And not that like there's I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but you'll see it often where it's just a lot of exposition dump in the beginning, or a lot of times it's voiceover from a character, like, oh, this and that and this and that. And sometimes it's just you have to do it to get to like where you want to be, where it's like there's not always a great way to explain where you are in a story, especially in a movie. TV shows is a little different. You got more time to settle in. But in a movie, you kind of just got to get set up going right away and then get the story going. But this is definitely a situation where like I really like how it was done. It was really well done. I was really engaged with the kind of footage and like the setup of like, oh, this is kind of like a documentary kind of introducing the story that they're going to present to you. Oh, and then here is the documentary footage of like the broadcast. I think it was just really smart setup. But how did you guys feel about it?
Good. Ty, you want to go first? I feel like me and Adam and been bouncing back and forth.
I mean, but no, as far as like the setup goes, I actually really liked it. I think because the main reason why I think I enjoyed it and why I think it played into it really well, and I actually am on more Blake's side. I felt like it was more than like a couple of minutes. I didn't think it was too long. I didn't think it was. Maybe it did feel like 5 minutes, but I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't even know what the actual time was.
I don't either. There's no way to settle that.
But I don't think it hurt the film at all. I think the reason why this was a good choice was because it is the first movie of its kind. Well, not of its kind, but of this like it. There's not going to be a sequel to it. It's not. I don't think they're going to play too much into it. It's kind of a spin-off from another universe, or the same universe as The Conjuring, because they mentioned both of them in the film.
That was cool. Yep. Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yep. So it's cool that it's kind of like in that same universe spin-off kind of that. So I'm really glad that they tied that in there. But the runtime is really what saves the intro, because it's such a short runtime. I think I appreciated and liked having more of that front. This is what's going on. This is kind of what's happening. This is what you may or may not see. So it still doesn't give you too much, but it definitely gives you enough to be like, all right, cool. So this is where we're at. You're giving me kind of a good lead up. And I think if the movie was maybe 2 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes, and we got like a full front story of like 10 or 15 minutes in the beginning, and then it probably would have hurt it pretty bad. It pretty like, it would have been like, that's pretty stupid, pretty pointless. But the fact that they kind of just give you that little tidbit and then just throw you into the fire and just say, all right, cool, we're just gonna ram this down your throat real quick, and we're gonna see how people take it. And I think it's received pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I really know how else. The only other way I could think of starting this movie would just be like text kind of things. You'll see that pretty often.
For sure.
So, but it's not like you have to get some kind of plot dump when it is a found footage like this. It's not really an easy way to jump right into it. But yeah, and I don't think it was too long. I just kind of noticed how long it was going on for. Usually these things are a little quick, and I think they were taking more time to show you actual clips like of when his wife was on the show, that kind of thing. Like they were just taking more time with it. And I think it ends up paying off pretty well, because they have a lot that they are trying to set up, and most of it ends up paying off.
For sure.
And I do think it was really well done overall. Just like
I think that's the saving grace.
Yeah. You go ahead.
It came back full circle. Yeah, and sorry to cut you off. Yeah, it came back full circle. Everything they touched on it was justifiable, right?
Right.
Once they got into it. So I mean, yeah, it's awesome. I mean, I think in that beginning stage where you get the relationship between Jack and Madeline.
Minnie was the nickname, I think.
Yeah, Jack and Minnie, right? We don't have her name right now. But yeah, you kind of get the backstory of that and their relationship and how Jack was always at odds with another television star trying to get the number one position. And then his wife ultimately gets lung cancer despite never smoking a day in her life, right? She passes away,
which is
his
like,
ratings go up.
And when like you hear that, you're kind of like, oh, that's a weird like point to bring up that she never smoked before. And then the payoff at the end of like,
exactly,
he's keep going, but the payoff at the end,
and I think that's what makes it worth it. We're like, as long as you're paying attention, you're like, oh, I see why they gave me the exposition dump.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So then his ratings are kind of shaky. He has his dying wife, for a lack of a better term, on there for one of the episodes, and his ratings go high. Then fast forward, right, we get into the position where his ratings are now plummeting, and his take of how to get his ratings back up and to get to the number one spot is to have a possessed child in her, what's the correct term? I don't know. Some type of psychiatric therapist, or I don't know what June's character is.
A guardian handler kind of person. Yeah, she's like she'll study the psychics or no. I don't know what you call it. I think she's technically a medium. But she's also like her handler. I don't know what her position was called.
A parapsychic.
Sure.
We'll throw that term.
Yeah, they gave her a title.
Something like that. Yeah, it had to do with paranormal. Yeah.
But yeah, so Jack's stance is like, hey, let's bring on a possessed child and her guardian, parapsychic, whatever you want to call it, and have them on the show to kind of talk about possession. And all this takes place in the 70s, which it seems like this is the type of shit that would happen on fucking live TV in the 70s. Of like, you know what I mean? If you just kind of any footage you've seen. So yeah, and that's where the film kicks off, man. And I think they do a great job. I think the child actress who we credited earlier, I think she's awesome. There's a lot of scenes in this where it's so obviously how it's filmed like it's a 70s TV show. So you're always watching it as like you're the viewer at home, right? So, and that's another awesome part of watching this in the theater, is it almost like how it's meant to be viewed, like you're sitting watching it with like a family. But there's a lot of scenes in here where obviously you're aware of when you're on camera, you don't speak to the camera, you speak like you're talking to like everybody else in the room. But her character always talks to the camera, so it always looked like she's talking directly to you when she says the most creepy and kind of strange things.
Yeah.
But they're not creepy because she's like a child. So it's weird to take it, but it's so interesting. And I think that was like an awesome part of the film, from my experience.
That cognitive dissonance of like what she's saying is weird, and I feel weird, but it's like she's also kind of sweet. Like that, the whole mismatch is what makes it so effective. Is like you don't feel right when she's talking because you're just always so nervous about it.
Yeah. So then, they have that going on, and then you have. I guess we'll kind of just go through the story, right? So ultimately that happens. Then there's somebody on there who he's a magician, right? He's like somebody, he's like a skeptic, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't believe it. And they kind of go through the motions of that. Ultimately, they get to the stance where they're going to perform. They're going to bring the demon out of the child on camera. Right? What can go wrong? Of course, everything goes wrong. And that's where the movie kind of picks you up to speed. But yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on, I guess, kind of the introduction of that, the found footage aesthetic, when they go behind the scenes after they go to the title cards, and that's in black and white. That was pretty cool. Although I didn't really like that it was the 70s aesthetic. That kind of drove me crazy.
It is, but it isn't. They widen the aspect ratio. It's still kind of shot on film, and it's black and white. They definitely expand the aspect ratio. I don't know the proper ratio that they use, but I agree with you. It does. I do wish they kept it in like the 4:3 almost.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I do wish they kept most of the movie in that until they go to like the dream sequence at the end, or like the psychic sequence at the end where you're inside Jack's little whatever trip. But yeah, Tyler, you go first here. But yeah, thoughts on the setup of the story structure, all that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely kind of, again, playing off like the whole aspect of it kind of being in that same universe. You kind of already know what you're in for as far as like from a possession um value, and how good they are at doing these kind of films. um I do like the fact too that Shudder's kind of involved in like all these horror films now too. Their name is like plastered everywhere. They've become like the poster child for horror movies, and so I thought that was really cool because during the previews, I don't know if anybody else caught previews, but during the previews, there's like 3 other movies that are also horror that also have the Shudder tagline like right on them. And so I looked at Nathaniel and I was like, oh, we're just getting beat the shit out of with horror movies now. I was like, we're here again. So I'm like, well, this is kind of right up our alley. So I'm like, we'll be fine, but we will prevail. But yeah, man, I like the overall story. I think it's cool how they do the whole like handler kind of aspect, and I like how they like he disappears and everything like that, and then they bring him back, and then you always kind of have like that underlying narration that's kind of happening that kind of gives you a little bit more explanation on everything. And but yeah, I think they did a really good job from a story plotline standpoint. They kept everything pretty linear. There really were no surprises as like, we're gonna throw this at you, or like maybe it's this, but it's this. It was really just kind of straightforward. Like, this is a possession thing. We're gonna keep it a possession thing, and we're gonna show you everything that we possibly can. And I think they did a pretty good job at basically just saying this is what it's going to be, and then driving that whole factor kind of home. And I think everybody did really well. The girl, I don't know her name. I don't have IMDb pulled up, unfortunately. But
Ingrid, let me find her.
Torelli or something like that.
Ingrid Torelli. Yep. Good call.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought she did a phenomenal job. As soon as she started making eye contact with the camera, I thought that was great. It's always kind of one of those ways of breaking down or breaking the fourth wall. And it's cool that you kind of lose the aspect that you're supposed to be a viewer at home, because you get so into like your movie mindset and you try to see it from different angles, and then like you get these points where she looks at the camera and you're like, I'm supposed to be a viewer at home. She's looking at everybody, all the audience through the camera, and she's always concerned, what camera she's supposed to look at and everything like that. And so yeah, I think they did a really good job with basically saying this is what it is, and they drove the shit out of it.
Yeah, I think totally agree with both of the points from the two of you. And I think another thing when I really got sold in on this is where they have the magician guy. He goes up there and he performs the trick on, what's the other guy's name? Gus. Who's kind of like Jack Delroy's like right hand man there. But nonetheless, they use practical effects, and that's when I was like, I'm fucking in on this. We just need more practical effects in horror. They age significantly better than having, you know what I mean, special effects on there. So yeah, they have like worms coming out of a stomach, worms coming out of the neck.
I was like, am I watching Dune again?
So funny enough, I thought of the same thing too, though, when he just talked about like giant worms. Then I'm like, man, giant worms are the hot topic right now, man.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and when they show it and it's got teeth, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is in the Dune universe. This is just a prequel.
So yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, the practical effects on this were really cool as well. And then the movie's even smart enough to challenge the viewer and the audience to the point where you see it and then everyone's kind of just like, oh, well, I don't believe that possession. Like, this is just fake for TV. And then like, okay, well, like, let's roll back the clips and confirm all that, right? Like, we can't edit clips that quickly. It's fucking 1974, fellas. Like, this is what it is. You know what I mean? So they go back and play it. Yeah. And then you can see the possession shit is real. And obviously in a possession film, you get the standard things, right? Like somebody's going to levitate, right? Specifically sitting on a chair that's bolted to the ground is definitely going to levitate every time. You're going to get like the super greasy hair in the face of the person that's possessed if it's a woman.
Yep.
Like the hair is no longer like, it's not just like split down the middle. It's now like directly over her face with a really deep voice. So yeah, they kind of nailed all that stuff. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think it was interesting. Then it has a few things that kind of threw me for a loop. Well, one specifically. There's only one thing that really caught me where I thought the movie was going to take something else with it, and it's they introduce prior to this they introduced that there is a cult, right? And this woman who's the child who's possessed was captured from a cult that committed a mass suicide. She was rescued from the burning house. They think that's why she's possessed because they put one of the demons in the child. And ultimately there were some pieces salvaged from that burning fire. One was like a knife, a skull, some other things. And eventually, once he cuts the chair free of the girl, and they go back to the talk show, right? He sets the sacrifice knife down right next to her.
I know exactly.
And like that was the only thing where I was like, oh, I think something's gonna happen with that. And ultimately nothing does. But like that was pretty cool on ease of like, I'm like, ooh, that's a little strange. I'm kind of waiting for something to go on in the background, and it just threw me for a loop.
Well, for me, it was just that was so effective, and they have to be doing this intentionally because they give you that line of like, "Hey, Jack, the knife." Like, in case you didn't see it, he's holding the dagger. But like the second I saw it on the little like coffee table in front of the set, I was like, I don't like the fact that they have that knife mere feet from the girl who's possessed. And then he sets it right next to her after the scene you're talking about with like the commercial break. He sets it down right next to her. I'm like, for sure something's happening there, right? And it just obviously, like you said, nothing does happen. But I was so on edge just waiting for something to happen with that knife that I was just like having a hard time almost paying attention to anything else because I'm just worried about when is something going to happen with that knife. And again, nothing ever does, and that's why it's so effective is like I'm just sitting there on edge about nothing that pays off, but like the fact that I'm on edge about that means I'm on edge about everything else happening at the same time. So that was just really effective kind of just storytelling and the good use of a prop. Just kind of your expectation as a viewer is, oh, possessed girl, knife from the possessive cult. There's probably something going to happen there, and it doesn't, but does a great job of just making you feel like there could be.
Yeah. Okay, so then my kind of takeaway from the relationship with Jack and June and Lily, it seems like you would take it as Jack and June have like a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Or a romantic relationship. Okay, right. Do you take that as like that's while he was married to his wife Minnie? Or do you think that's afterwards?
I definitely think it's after.
Okay.
From my reading, it never seemed like there was anything to like doubt the fact that he really loved his former wife. I think the only kind of like flaw in the character of Jack is like it's only been a year, and the fact that he's kind of already moved on that quickly is a little alarming. And so like I don't know, maybe I never even thought of that. I feel like that was something where that was going on while he was with his wife. I never read it like that. There wasn't a specific line or anything that made me think that way. Is there a reason or anything you can point to like what made you think of that?
No, I was just kind of curious on how you all felt about it, but I'm on the latter of that where I think it was just after once he becomes a widowed. Once he's widowed, right? I guess that's the term I'm looking for.
Right.
So yeah, I'm with you on that. And ultimately I think that's what the reason of getting her on the show is relationship. So it's not like it's just a complete stranger and a daughter and a girl who's possessed. Right. So there's kind of a little more to it, right? Which is already a little shisty because they play it as in she's brought onto the set specifically being the guardian of the possessed woman, possessed girl, I should say. So, but yeah, overall, man, it's good. And then to kind of like wrap up the rest of the story, right? So ultimately, you come to the realization that Jack was a part of I don't know if it's a religion or another cult.
It's like kind of another cult, and that cult's real. Like that's a real thing. I don't know if you guys knew that.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
But like, yeah, it's not talked about, but I'm pretty sure like that is a real. And I don't know if that's like the one that's featured in the movie is the real thing, but it's at least based on a real cult where like all these powerful people do gather in the woods. I think the owl is like their icon or something like that, and it's like documented. Like presidents have been in part of it, very high up people. It's not super like publicly talked about as probably as much as it should be, but that is a real thing. I'm pretty sure. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. So Jack is a part of that, and then the demon kind of comes out of the girl, and he's like, "Hey, like, it's nice to meet you again. We haven't met in years." And he's kind of like, "Oh, I don't know what's going on, XYZ." And ultimately, as the viewer, you come that Jack made a pact with the devil, right, to become super famous, and to have a number one talk show. Pardon me, and yeah, that's ultimately how he got there, is by having a possessed woman, a possessed girl. I can always say that on the show, who ultimately is like, do you take it as possession is like a virus and spread through the TV? Like, that's kind of how I would take it, because when Jack's going through that nightmare sequence right at the end, he was like, turn off your TV, like, don't watch it, turn it off. You know what I mean? So it's almost like it's kind of like the demon was using the platform of television to like enhance itself.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of my takeaway, and why she's up being electrocuted, which was an awesome scene. And she's got a fucking split headed in half, which like didn't expect to see any of that.
Wild. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's when I was like,
the direction I thought it was going.
They were going all the way in on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I was cool with it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was cool with it. Definitely, kind of like you said, not expected at all for them to go down that road. I thought they were definitely going to be a little bit more of like a typical kind of possession, like kind of how you saw where the devil actually takes over. You can see like the scars on her face and you know all that stuff, and that's about as far as I thought that they were going to go. And then you get full kind of like poltergeist kind of vibes from it, and it was pretty intense, but it was cool.
Yeah, what do you guys think of the ending overall, between that sequence in the studio where she kind of just annihilates everyone, which was not expected on my part, but then also like the dream sequence? Like, what do you guys think about it going in that direction? Because I really wasn't expecting it to. Definitely a departure from everything we'd seen up until that point, and breaking away from the found footage, where like we kind of get into this dream sequence almost of Jack. Or do you guys interpret that as like that was what the broadcast saw? Because on my end, I saw it as like that's what Jack saw in his mind. And then we flash back to the broadcast, and turns out he has the knife and is like ending the possession. What did you guys kind of think of that as a whole? Or how did you guys interpret that too?
I'm with you, where I took that as that's just a dreamlike state, and that's not what the viewer saw, because anytime we have what the viewer's seen, it's in a different aspect ratio.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they do switch the aspect ratio there.
And the dream situation or the dream sequence is in a totally different, it's like my movie format. I don't know the correct aspect ratio of that. But yeah, so effectively then what the viewer sees, I think, is just him stabbing the girl, right? Where he sees it as his wife as a hallucination of like please put me out of my misery, I'm dying of cancer or lung cancer, whatever it may be. And he kind of like gives into that, and he ends up stabbing the girl on live TV and killing her. And I think ultimately that's to catch how he has the number one talk show, right? Of like all that happened on air, crazy numbers through the roof, right? And ultimately he's kind of fucked. But didn't expect the dream sequence thing to kind of go through, but it was cool, really eerie. Yeah. So it was cool. I liked it, and then I liked the aspect of him kind of being like turn your TVs off, and that's how I kind of took it as, I think it can spread through televisions. And like, is all of America possessed now? I don't know. They kind of leave that up for interpretation, but like that's kind of my take.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it could spread. I think it was just more he was realizing that he was kind of in some kind of possessed sequence, and I think almost habitually he was like, oh, that means that maybe the broadcast is still going on, and he's just trying to be like, turn it off. I don't know. I think he is just panicking. It was like, please, like, look away. Or maybe he just didn't know if people were able to see what he was seeing. Yeah, it's just definitely a weird, but also it was a weird ending in the fact that, like, I wasn't really expecting anything like that. And like trying to unpiece and unravel what exactly he was seeing and how that relates to like the themes of the movie or an overarching message. Like that coming out of the movie immediately was like, I don't know if I love that part, because I was really enjoying it up until then. Yeah. As I've kind of sat on it, I'm like, oh, okay, I actually kind of do like it. It says a little bit more. It ties some more like loose ends to the overall story, and also like how do you end that movie in a unique way? Because I think we all could see it going to like a possession murder spree and then just a cut, and that's the end of the film. The fact that they took it a little bit more of like a unique route, I do enjoy, as I've kind of thought about it a little bit more. But yeah, I think overall I'm pretty happy with how they ended it. Just a little like out of left field, but I think that's ultimately a good thing because, you know, don't need a cliche ending to a movie that's like not very cliche and is a cool, unique idea.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, we know that there's not going to be a sequel to this. We know that this is going to be standalone. It's just kind of a spin-off. You can kind of end it however the fuck you want because it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, true.
Right.
And I think they did a good job overall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you all take it as the masked skeleton figure? Do you take it all as like that's like a demon?
I didn't know what to make of that. Because they definitely played that character as someone. Yeah, they made it seem like it was a demon of some sort. I wasn't sure if it was like maybe a member of the cult coming to make sure or had some kind of grand plan. I was hoping there was more to be revealed there. I don't think it was all that clear. I was expecting there to be some kind of reveal with the skeleton. I don't know if it's super clear what that reveal ends up being from my reading of it. Do you have any theories or?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that as well. Where I mean, originally when he goes into the crowd where they have the first psychic guy, like, does anybody know it's Stacy or whatever it is, right? And the skeleton guy sitting next to him, like, just me, like, big horror brain seeing that guy, and I was like, that guy seems really weird, like dressed and everything. I was like, I don't think that's a person. Like, you know, like that was kind of like my immediate hunch as soon as he was on camera, and he's like sitting behind the guy they're actually interviewing. And then my takeaway is I feel like there were a few scenes where Lily is speaking and like she turns to the crowd, but it seems like she's always turning to the direction of like where that guy's sitting.
Oh, I didn't pick
so like
up on
I don't
that.
know. That just seemed a little strange to me, but I guess I'd have to go back and watch.
That is interesting.
But yeah, I was like, oh, I don't know. And then he popped up a few times in like the dream sequence.
He did, yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I wish they kind of maybe elaborated or hinted more towards the direct link to that character. But that's interesting. Did you guys notice? Obviously they freeze frame on Millie when she's behind Jack. And there's two mirror shots. And there might be more. So there's two mirror shots where she pops up. One's pretty obvious where there's a mirror, like little mirror, like makeup kit mirror on the table.
On the table. Yeah.
And that one's pretty like, oh, you see something there. It's kind of like they don't shy away from it. They want you to see it. I don't know if you guys picked up on backstage at one point. There is a mirror where someone's like fixing their tie or something. And as they're walking away, it's like a quick cut, but then they cut back to a shot, and as they're walking away from the mirror, you see her in that mirror too. And I saw her, and I was like, "What? That's not right."
Yeah.
And because they hadn't really hinted at anything quite yet, in terms of Millie, it might have even been before they tell you that the other guy, the psychic dude that they have on initially, died or anything like that. Or it might have been that shot out, whatever it is. But you do see her in that mirror. I'm like, I don't like that. And then obviously they make a bigger point of it on the one on the coffee table. But did you guys pick up on those? I'm assuming at least the one on the coffee table. Did you guys see the girl in the mirror or Millie in the mirror the first time around too? Okay.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, but I think that's just us being like, horror brains. Yeah, you know what I mean? We're like, you're like looking for other things. But yeah, that was really cool. That reminds me of like Flanagan-esque to me, of like the people in mirrors in the background, right? Were kind of taking up like negative space. Where that was really cool. And I think there's another scene in there as well, right, where it kind of cuts to him talking and you can see Minnie's hand on his shoulder, right? Like very brief as well. So yeah, they've got a lot of that stuff remind me of a lot of Mike Flanagan work in terms of like Haunting of Hill House, Midnight Mass, everything he's done. He's got a lot of stuff like that. But yeah, man, overall, I liked it for a new horror adaptation, right? It's not the fucking 9th Scream film or the 13th Halloween film. Like, like we need more stuff like this. You know what I mean? Yeah. The only thing I would say that I didn't care for was like, it was a new adaptation, but like I just traditionally don't care for possession films. Right. So that was the only thing it kind of had going for me. But like, I'm in. It was a fresh take. They do it through this 1970s television, right? It's not just you're going into somebody's house and like the possessed person is tied in the bed. and we're gonna perform an exorcism. So, yeah, man. Overall, I liked it.
I think this was unique enough in that aspect. The actual possession scene itself was pretty run of the mill. You know,
for sure.
The same effects, like as you mentioned earlier, same effects that you kind of expect, and the voice change, the makeup, and everything like that, and what it says. That was all pretty run of the mill. But the way they kind of just go about it, the character outside of the possession, I think, is really interesting and kind of well done. Where there is a separation between the two, but you don't know where that separation is exactly. I think that's really interesting. But yeah, I can agree with you on that point. But I think there's a unique enough take here to make it stand out a little bit.
Yeah, and ultimately, with it being a horror film, there's three kills, right? June, Gus, the skeptic, and the girl. Yeah, and they're all pretty good. I mean, you don't really see Lily die.
The first guy too.
Oh yeah, that's off screen. Correct.
Chris Stew.
Yeah, he dies off screen. But the ones you see on screen are like pretty good. Like June's death is pretty good. She's being like hung by her necklace, and it's like it's just quick. You know what I mean? It's one of those you're like, ooh, that's rough.
Oh shit!
And I love how the skeptic immediately supplicates, and he's just like, I'll worship you. I like, holy crap.
He tries to pay him, like the $2 million check, $200,000 check, whatever it is.
Yeah. And he's like, I'll be your servant, whatever, and then just gets melted. Great.
Great. That was funny for sure. Yeah.
Turns from a skeptic to the ultimate believer in 0.2 seconds.
The duality of a man.
Right. All right. Any other big points here, or are we good to head out of spoilers?
No, man. We need more films like this. Original stuff. Go support it.
That I think we can all agree with.
Facts.
We're going to go ahead and welcome back all the listeners who skipped over the spoiler segment of the podcast. We're going to go ahead and throw Late Night with the Devil up upon our Entropy list. For those of you who do not know, the Entropy list is Back Row Banter's official list of all the movies we have reviewed, regardless of genre, regardless of anything else, all on one fantastic list. That's essentially how we rate our movies, rather than do it out of 5 stars out of 10, whatever that ends up looking like. We throw up all the movies we review and see how they compare to one another. If you want to see the entry list for yourself, it's linked in the episode description. This will be entry 182 on the entropy list. Number 1 currently stands at The Shining. Could have been Doom 2 if he, who is not here right now, wasn't such a stick in the mud. So Nathaniel did give us his ranking. We can start there. Let's see. What did he say? He said it was above.
He said 112.
So that's below Trick or Treat and above Us, which isn't a terrible place for it. Thinking on that, I'm probably above Trick or Treat personally.
Too crazy.
But like,
I know that one's tough
much.
for time.
He's in a pretty good spot looking at like the movies around it. I wouldn't say like looking at above Trick or Treat, Die Hard, Scream, The Creator, Crank. Crank out, not standing. Man, yeah, Scream and Die Hard are the two tripping me up there because like I could put this above The Creator, Crank, and Last Duel without a hesitation.
In the Scream, for listeners that we're talking about at that point on the entry list, that's what, Scream 5?
That's the 2022 versions. Yeah, the kind of reboot-ish. I think I'll probably just go... See, I don't have the soft spot for Die Hard or nostalgia for it that like most people do. I like the movie, but like, and maybe it's fallen a little short, but I don't absolutely love it. And the Scream and The Creator I like as well, but I think this was a lot of fun. I do, and I don't like putting it below The Last Duel. So I think I'll put it at 106, below Conjuring 2, another horror movie, and above The Last Duel. I think that's where I'll land.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let it rip. I think I'm gonna go ahead and place it at 100. So above the menu, below X.
Good spot.
Yeah, kind of in that horror alley. Scream at 109. That's pretty easy for me to challenge. And then I started looking at The Conjuring 2 at 105. And I was like, okay, like 2 possession films, right? Like, which one do I ultimately like more? The first Conjuring is awesome, but then I'm like, I think I like this more than the second. And it's giving us
Conjuring 2 is underrated. Like, it's not as good as the first one, but it's still very close in my opinion.
And
thinking back on
I was kind of torn looking at it. I should rewatch that, to be honest with you.
The third one's crap. Third one's bad. Deserves to be as low as it is on this list. The second one's, I remember us kind of not maybe universally agreeing, but saying it was pretty close. And like, obviously it's separated pretty far now from the original Conjuring, but when we ranked it, I don't remember it being too far off. I think it's just kind of got split. Yeah,
but I ultimately think I think I'm picking this over for the possession tip, right? I mean, like one, the runtime it's got on it. I still think the acting as well, and then just it gives a different aspect on the possession that we've yet to see. We've seen the Conjuring film, like that's Amityville Horror. We've seen that film 20 times. Now that just happens to be one of the better versions of that film, right? Where this ultimately feels like an original idea. So I'll give them the credit on that. And then Last Night in Soho. I like this more than that. Halloween 2018. One of the better remakes, arguably probably the best modern remake outside of Evil Dead 2013. But still, it's a remake. It's like the fucking 12th Halloween film, you know? So I'm just kind of like, I'm trying to give it the benefit of the doubt of it being an original adaptation. And like small budget, first time directors, like they did good, man. I'm trying to give people the credit. So yeah, I'll go 100 below X. Ty West is awesome. So yeah, hard to top him in the horror lane above the menu. So that's where I'm at.
Ty?
I am going to be a little lower.
Lame.
And Trick or Treat is just my hard stop.
I don't get y'all's affliction for that movie. Personally. Like I like it. Maybe I need to. I like it, but you guys are like super, super high on it. And I just don't get it personally. But
it's a gatekeeper thing too. I think you have to have a strong gatekeeper for where you want to put things. And I think as far as the latter part of the list, that's a really good number from like a division standpoint. And I think it's a good movie for me to kind of constantly be able to stand on. And I'm going to stick by it until I find something else that's going to be a hard hitter for me. It was really kind of hard to look at things like Independence Day, Top Gun. Insidious was something that I always had like a very fond relationship with, as far as like early horror movies for myself. And then you look at like TMNT. Everybody was really high on that. I'm still pretty high on it. I don't think I was high as everybody else. And then it kind of falls off to like fucking Men, which kind of sucks. And then I kind of went a little bit higher, and I'm kind of thinking like, I'm okay with sacrificing some things. And then I fucking look at Black Widow just sitting there like fucking me. And I'm like, you piece of shit. And that movie I still think is a little high for what it is.
I would agree wholeheartedly on that.
Sure. Yeah, it is.
And the 007s, No Time to Die has, those have always been pretty strong. They're obviously pretty repetitive, but there's never been one where I'm like, this is dog shit.
Right, for sure.
Whereas like Black Widow could be arguably dog shit. Yeah. And then you have like The Rock, and so I think I'm gonna be at 114. I'm going to put this above Black Widow and below No Time to Die.
Also a respectable spot to place it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Well, we're all right around the same spot. And we end up getting an even rating of 108. Now, we never discussed, because this happened 2 weeks ago, we never discussed whether an even rating means we tie break it or whether that's when we just put it there. Since we haven't fully discussed this with Nathaniel, I think we'll go by the rule we have been at, which is if it's at an even ranking, that's where it goes.
Sure.
If that makes sense. I do think we should switch that in the future to like, this is an instance where we tie break when it gets like a 108.76. that's when it goes to 109 and between 108 and 109. But we can have that discussion more officially off pod. I think for now we just got to stick with what we've been doing, which is it's an even rating of 108, so it goes at 108. That puts it puts it below Crank and above the Creator. Well, there you have it, folks.
I should give the Creator another shot, man.
I was thinking the same thing too. It got some Oscar nods for some VHX stuff. I don't know if it won anything, but it got some Oscar nods, and I was thinking about that movie. I think that what soured me on that a little bit is just the ending. Kind of fell a little flat for me. But yeah, it was solid overall, and at least it's new IP. It aesthetically, like visually, looked really good. That's what I remember looking or coming away with it. So
right,
yeah,
and then to your point, the new IP thing, it has its going for it. I talked to my dad the other day, and he just randomly brought it up. Then he was like, "I rewatched it, man." He was like, "I really like that movie."
Yeah, it's
and
solid.
I was like, "You know what, Dad? I'm gonna give it another shot." So
yeah, it's solid. Yeah. I don't know if I need a sequel, but it's good.
No, please, no more sequels.
I'd rather that director just get the green light to go make another original
for sure.
idea,
Give me something else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with sequels. Be up to like 3 or 4. If you're John Wick, you can give me a 5th one, please. But like,
or Dune. You can give us 6 Dunes if they're all by Denny.
If they're all by Denny, give me as many as Denny's willing to make. Yeah. I don't think he'll make more than 3 personally. But if he wants to keep making, well, I don't think he really can, just based on the source material. Yeah, the last 3 books. Book 3 is he could probably do, as I'm getting through that right now. Children of Dune is Paul's kids, and some of the same characters from the movies that you guys know. But then after this original trilogy, the second trilogy, I guess this is kind of spoilers, but it's kind of like a well-known thing. Paul's kid ends up merging with a sandworm and becomes an emperor for like 3,000 years. It's like 3,000 years after the events of the first one. So like you can't that would be really hard for him to do. And those are the only 6 written by Frank Herbert. The rest are written by Brian Herbert, and I've heard those are not nearly as good. There's like 26 books written by his son. It's kind of insane.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there, and everyone's kind of like, is this all necessary? And it's kind of debated how canon those are. But anyway, I think if Denny were to make more than Dune Messiah, he could do Children of Dune probably, but it would probably have to stop there.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Where did this end up at? 108? Yeah, 108. That's 108. The final ranking there. Our next review is going to be a movie called Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. Is it Godzilla and Kong, The New Empire? How am I pronouncing that X? Is it Godzilla times Kong, The New Empire? I don't know.
I saw somebody say that on Reddit. Yeah, I was like, no one knows how to pronounce this movie title. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I saw on Twitter today, it was like Godzilla -1, Godzilla X Kong. What's with the hell with all these monsters making me do math? Like, I can't keep up.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how you read it. I would imagine it's got to be, I mean, it can't be versus because you would just do versus.
We already did versus, though. They fought in the last movie.
Is that what the last one's called?
Yeah, it's Godzilla versus Kong. Yeah, it's Godzilla v Kong, I think.
Yeah.
So now Godzilla X Kong, they're on the same side, I think, but I don't know. I don't know.
I just view it as like there's nothing there. I just say like God Kong or like Godzilla Kong. There's nothing there.
That'd be better than Godzilla X Kong. I don't know. It's a new movie. Go see it. It's a great thing to do on Easter Sunday. Go watch some monsters rise up and smash into each other. See it in IMAX if you want. Do what you can. I don't know. These movies are fun to watch sometimes. Just turn off your brain. Hopefully it's better than Transformers Rise of the Beasts. That sucked.
No, it's got to be.
It can't be worse. It really can't be worse. That's probably the worst movie I've ever seen. But yeah.
What is that ranked on the list, man?
Not low enough.
That thing may not be low enough.
Dude, that thing could be last and it's not low enough.
Where is it at?
Pull the list back up.
Let me see if I can find it. No, I'm not. There we go.
170. which is sad.
Okay.
That should be definitely lower.
Yeah, that's about where it should be then.
That could be lower. There's some bad movies down there. Anyway,
I rewatched Godzilla vs Kong the other day.
Yeah.
To gear up. You feel
I might
me?
have to do the same.
Had to get in the mindset.
I might have to do the same.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Good mindset. So we'll see. It'll be a popcorn movie.
Yeah, I mean it'll be whatever.
It is what it is.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, I would say we're going pretty long into this review. We had a good discussion and had a lot of casual talk at the front of the show, so I think we'll just head on out here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, share the podcast, share with a friend, a family member, a talk show host, or maybe one of his guests, whoever it is. Just share it with them and have them give us a listen. Have them give us a 5-star review if they get a chance. I don't know if I got one. I don't know if we did or not. But if you leave us a 5-star review, we'll read it on the podcast. Could be good, could be bad. Doesn't really matter what it says as long as it's not like super vulgar or like hateful. Then we will read it out here on the podcast. Yeah, do that. Sure, follow the show. Follow us on Twitter at Banter Row, on Instagram at Back Row Banter Pod, and our YouTube is just Back Row Banter. And then our email is backrowbanterpod@gmail.com. If you want to send us any messages, you can do so there as well. BlakeHolder, where can the people find you at, my man?
Yo, Letterboxd, BlakeHolder. I'll be in there logging some things. Instagram, Mr. Watercooler. PlayStation, Mr. Watercooler. Xbox, Mr. Watercooler. I think I may get back on Siege. I haven't played Siege in a minute, but
they just dropped a Halo bundle for Siege.
Oh, did they really?
I know there's a Master Chief skin.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Who's got the Master Chief skin? Is it Ace?
Sledge. Give him a hammer.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like $20, and I couldn't justify it.
Of course, it's Ubisoft. I'm surprised it
Yeah.
wasn't fucking a new game at $60-$70.
Yeah. I saw there's Overwatch 2 skins for like $25, and I'm like,
yeah. Ubisoft is
Dude.
sick, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
they're all twisted, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as like the free to play model is cool and all, but like the fact that you're charging this much for digital items,
Right.
It's just like,
For sure.
I don't feel good about it. But at the same time, I don't love paying $60 for every game I play. So I don't know. I don't know where to land on it, but it's kind of, it's like you can have the microtransactions. I'm cool paying 5 to 10. 5 to 10 I can justify. Once you go over 10, I'm like, what am I purchasing here? What can I can't touch anything that I'm giving my money towards, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a different discussion for a
that's
different
where
day.
you can find me. I'll pass it to we'll go to Ty.
Can't really do Twitch anymore. Not that we can, we're just not. But Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd are all Tyler Vidalis, VID, alias Nathaniel.
No, I'm stuck. Waiting for Nathaniel to pass it around. Yeah, you can find. I'm not Nathaniel. I'm Adam. You can find me on on Twitter at Aish24 and on Letterboxd at Aish. I think that'll do it here for episode 185. Coming up on that big 200. I wonder how close we'll get to 200 lining up with our 4-year. I don't know. It's 15 weeks from now. Sounds like it could be July, but I don't know.
Leap year might fuck it up.
That's one extra day, not an extra week.
But I don't know, I'm just saying.
It could. I mean, you never know. But I'm interested
Weirder
to see.
things have
That
happened.
would be kind of crazy if the 200 lines up perfectly with with our 4-year. I'll look into that off pod. Don't need to bore the listeners with me looking at a calendar. But yeah, thank you all for listening. Episode 185, Late Night with the Devil. Thank you. Or go ahead and watch Godzilla times Kong, the new Empire, and then join us for our review next week. We'll BRB.
America. Ready for another lesson.
Any March Madness for you boys past couple weeks?
Nah,
I'm not a big college basketball guy, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a bracket for work because I feel like it's one of those things you like just have to
Just
do.
like, yeah,
like
just a
working
full
in the
thing.
corporate setting. You know what I mean? It's like every year it comes around.
Yeah.
So I know enough about college basketball and sports where like you just can't pick the higher seed every time. That's just not how sports work.
Right. You got to.
So I had to throw a few upsets in there. Yeah, you know what I mean. So, I think the Sweet 16 starts today, so I'll probably should pull up my bracket on my work laptop. But yeah, I think right now, I mean, I think there's like 50 something brackets in that pool right now. I think I'm in third place.
Hey, wow,
so I had a few upsets that were rolling. Yeah, but ultimately you got to have the winner correct.
Yeah,
and then you have to at least have some of the upsets. So yeah, we'll see. I kind of just went through clicking shit, knew a little bit, few of the blue bloods, and I was like, I gotta pick a 11 over 5. I gotta do, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and kind of just went down. So
yeah, I picked some of those, but I just didn't get the right ones. Where it was like, if I just picked it in a different, right? If I just picked a different 11-5 matchup to go the other way, I would have a much better bracket than I do. And I had Auburn going far, I think, to my Final Four, just because, like, I don't know, just to have a random team that you wouldn't expect to go there. But they got knocked out, I think, in the first round, so that hurt. But everyone else in my Final Four is still alive for now, so I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't paid attention to any of college basketball this year, and my enthusiasm's fallen off a little bit on March Madness. I still think it's a very fun sporting event, but
I still haven't even watched. Sorry about that. I still haven't even watched a game this year from the tournament. Now, granted, like once the Final Four comes around, like I'm sure I'll probably watch that if it's on a weekend and I'm like at a bar or hanging out with friends. You know what I mean? But as far as like me sitting at home, like I'm gonna go on my way and turn on college basketball is a little tough.
It's been hard for me this year because I have watched a couple of the NCAA games. But after watching so much NBA, it's so hard to go back to watching college.
Bad. Yeah.
Like when I don't have any skin in the game with Missouri, like it's so hard to watch college basketball. You're so right.
And that's what like the just kind of the stance that I've got to. It was probably like post college, you know what I mean, or like late college, where I was like, man, like it's cool, but just like the product of the game, if I just want to watch basketball as a sport, is like. The shot selection is like terrible. People miss like wide open looks. Like that shit just doesn't happen in the NBA. Right. You know what I mean? You watch NBA and offensively, you're like, oh my God, that's a great shot.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you don't really see that type of stuff.
No, you don't. College. And like you have those players who like, are going to the NBA, and those players are fun to watch because then they're just head and shoulders above everybody else. But then like when it's just a bunch of people who are maybe going to play overseas and a bunch of people who will maybe never play again, it's just not that entertaining.
It's the beauty of college sports, man. You got somebody who's going to go down to be like an all-time great or like all pro at the next level. Then he's playing against somebody who's going to be an accountant in like 5 months.
No, exactly. It's great.